Hey, I'm Tron, and this is Word, the bite-sized video Bible review, taking on one chapter a day. Today we have arrived at Genesis 19, where in 38 verses, two angels of the Lord come to visit Lot in Sodom to make sure he and his family are warned about the upcoming destruction of the area. Every man of the city shows up to abuse Lot's visitors, and Lot is willing to give up everything he has to protect the newcomers in his home. The angels strike the pending intruders with blindness, and they give up their pursuit. Lot is told to warn any relatives in town, and he gets a hold of his daughter's fiancés to give them an out, but they laugh at him. Lot flees with his wife and daughters before fire and brimstone decimate Sodom and Gomorrah. In the process, Lot's wife disobeys the angel's directives and loses her life. When all is said and done, in a mountain cave, Lot's daughters believe they are alone without future husbands, get their father, the last honorable man of Sodom, drunk to get pregnant. His son's lineage would end up becoming the nations of Moab and Ammon. That is the last we hear of Lot. We can take a closer look at how this judgment of the Lord went down in verses 24 and 25. Then the Lord rained down fire and burning sulfur from the sky on Sodom and Gomorrah. He utterly destroyed them, along with the other cities and the villages of the plain, wiping out all the people and every bit of vegetation. All life is snuffed out in the process. But how could it get to this level? What would warrant this judgment? Briefly looking outside of Genesis might give us an answer. In the book of James, chapter 1, verses 14 and 15, it says this: "Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. Death is already the end result." In this case, things have gotten out of hand to such a degree that nothing can be salvaged and total destruction has ensued. But what about Lot's wife? Her fate is described in verse 26. But Lot's wife looked back as she was following behind him, and she turned into a pillar of salt. The angelic visitors had warned about stopping or looking back, but she did. It is a possibility that she more than just looked back. At the very least, she looked back with the intention of returning. But it could also be that she actually started the trek back towards the city while being behind Lot. Knowing the total inferno either about to happen or happening, why? This is purely my speculation, but when the angels warned about Lot, they asked him to tell any relatives in the city. Might there have been other sons or daughters, perhaps other family that were so far gone that they were beyond rescue? Were the fiancés left behind close? I don't know, but it could explain Lot's wife's strong desire to return to Sodom. Wife's decisions do not seem to run in the family, as the last remaining close family of Lot, out of fear, desperation, or sheer short-sightedness, believe that the best way forward is for the father to father their children, in verse 36. As a result, both Lot's daughters became pregnant by their own father. Lot unknowingly chose this path a couple of decades earlier when he parted ways with his uncle, just because the area looked like the more promising land. This is where we see that the grass is not always greener on the other side. As for Abram, seeing the destruction from afar, leaves the promised land and repeats previous mistakes. Well, that is tomorrow in Genesis chapter 20. Until then, Word.